Hello there, Blindy-sama here, and today we are not doing an affordable weapon review. Today is going to be the first video in a new series that I'm going to call Blindy Builds. This was inspired by an idea a friend of mine gave me a while back when I started getting back into crafting and woodworking. And as much as I really don't want anyone in my dingy little workshop, I don't mind showing off my finished products, whether they came out great or not. So here we go. You too can do it, if a blind guy can. So today we're going to look at some decorative clubs and cudgels that I've made. Some of the ones that I'm going to show you later could be functional, and I do label almost all of my clubs as decorative. That way if someone does something silly with them, I'm not liable. But these ones definitely are meant to be either prototypes or simply just decorative. Like, they're just supposed to be fun. So this first one here, I made out of a salvage tool handle. And I believe I called it the Coastalcudgel, or something along those lines. And it's painted tidal teal, and the studs on it, which are some upholstery tacks, are alternating brass and silver. And the grip is some scrap nylon rope that I had that I tied together, and I even was able to give it a little wrist strap. So it's a cute little decorative piece. I usually hang it behind my bedroom doors, just kind of there. I don't know if I would actually put this one up for sale if I set up at a stall somewhere or something, but it'd make a cute little gift or whatever. It's a nice little decoration. The second one we're going to look at is a much let's say, stockier club, and it was also a good lesson in why you have to be super cautious when working green wood. I know a lot of people will call out blasphemy for me working green wood, but there's multiple reasons why I do it. One of them being, I don't always have a year to 2 years time to let the wood dry out completely seasoned so that I can, use it. Because I don't know what's going to happen with my vision, so I work with what I got. And if I come across some seasoned wood, great. If not, then I gotta take my risks. So this one, as you can tell, was all silver upholstery tacks. And you can tell it was early on when I made a template for my spiked and studded clubs that the template moved and I didn't notice it till it was way too late. You can even see where a stud or two has already come out. But this is just supposed to be a big honking like orc club, decorative piece. And I'll show you 2 reasons why it is difficult when you work with green wood, and why sometimes it's a pain in the patootie. And one of them is right here, this big crack. This club was quite a bit bigger, width-wise, and then it shrank, and see it developed that nasty crack right there. Could I fix it? Absolutely. But I'll be honest with you, I kind of feel like the crack adds to the aesthetic of this piece. The one thing that actually made me mad, though, was this is one of my first early experiences using the wider leather strap to try to wrap a grip. And before the wood shrank, and I glued this leather in place, or faux leather in place, it had a nice tight fit, it felt really good. And as the wood shrank, of course now there's a lot of give. So that is a cautionary tale in you're gonna take a lot of risks if you're working with green wood. But it's still a neat decorative piece. I still think it would look cool just sitting around, or if you played a tabletop game, you could set it in the middle of the table as a centerpiece, maybe to allure, the players. Well, what's going to happen tonight? Are we going to fight like some barbarians, or what's going on? There's a big studded club in the center of the table. Fun stuff, Mood setting, if that's what you're in the mood for. Don't mind me while I fumble around and try to find other things that I want to put on camera. So, the next couple I'm going to show you, this little guy and this guy, are moderately recent prototypes that I did because I always have wanted either a maquidal or a, oh lord, I just had the name, but the Polynesian shark tooth club, Leomano, there we go. And also, when I was a kid, I remember I've seen many cartoon villains that would have, like, a big stone club and it had crystal spikes and stuff, so that's where this one kind of came from. So there is some extra super glue. Super glue and I have a love-hate relationship, mostly hate. But it was great for this one specifically because as the extra glue dried, it kind of looks like when you start to see certain mineral deposits develop on stone. And I painted them, or rather stained them, a color called Moonless, which is kind of like a gray blue, which reminds me of stone. And both of these bodies are made of oak. The spikes are these, cheap resin crystals you can get from overseas, you know what I mean? But this was a prototype to see if I could make one, and the answer is yes. Which is cool. So maybe in the future I'll make a more proper one with actual crystal spikes, or maybe some hardened glass or something. Also, I generally use muscle-powered tools, but for this one and the other little guy that I'm about to show you again in a second, I did use a drill because I didn't really have much of a choice because I needed to drill wider pilot holes, but it worked out. I still have no holes in my hands and all my fingies. And the grip on this one's just a simple, leather cord wrap grip. But I kind of like because this one very much reminds me of, hold on, sorry guys, of like a maquidal, which is, an Aztec weapon. So even though it's a prototype and it isn't perfect, I was like, well, that's cool. Now I know I can make a much better version in the future. And then we'll go back to this one, which is kind of shaped more like a traditional, studded club, or spike club rather, or like a, simplified mace. And it did lose one of the crystals. I have to glue it back in. It's on the back side. And I know the crystals don't match. I got what I got, which is why I would like to remake one of these in the future with real crystals or hardened glass that all match. It would be really cool. But for a prototype, I was very happy with it. I just wish the blasted studs would stop breaking or, falling out. It seems to be a little bit tricky. I have more trouble with them breaking than I do them falling out, because they're resin and they're not very durable. So if you knock one of these off the shelf or something, it could break the spikes. And this one also just has a simple cord leather wrapped grip. It's a little guy. I feel like this is something that like a deep gnome would use. I believe when I did like my little post about it on my IG or whatever, I was like, yeah, this is, a great gnome, great gnome, right? A deep gnome, spike club or mace. They make these because they live in the Underdark, blah, blah, blah. Very thematic, which is, par for the course for me. I love making fantasy-inspired pieces. I don't know if I'll ever show all the different wands and dragon figurines that I've made on here, but I'm definitely going to show off, more clubs in different videos because I just really love making clubs. There's just something satisfying when you're finished making a club. Now, these next three could be functional, but because of how far the spikes protrude and how narrow the wood is, yada, 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 I would consider them more decorative pieces. Also that, and for legal reasons. But these I see in the hands of goblins. So we have some nail clubs here, and all the bodies are made of oak. And I have two of them that were painted black, and one of them that's painted brown. Sorry if you have a hard time with the contrast here. It also has like a little bit of leather around the grip. And the spikes for this are antique iron square nails, which I got for a very inexpensive price. And iron is softer than people think it is. It can be fairly soft, especially in thin pieces like these nails. So if you're not careful and you don't drill pilot holes ahead of time to put them in your club, you can very easily bend the living bejesus out of them. Which is also why I would consider this decorative, because of how far they stick out. If I put my finger behind one of them, you can kind of see there how far they stick out. They could easily get knocked out or bent over very easily. And though a lot of clubs in history were meant to be disposable weapons, there were some that were passed down generation to generation. So if this was something that you were in a tribe or a community that passed down their weapons, you wouldn't want it made this way. You want it to be made a lot sturdier. But it's a cool little decorative Goblin Wood Nail Club, and I'll show you the other two of them that are similar. Give me one moment, please. So then we have this one. Again, all three of these made out of oak. This one, I feel, even though it doesn't have hardly any weight to it, because of how skinny the wood is, it would smart a lot. You can get some really good whippy action. Can you imagine a horde of goblins coming at you, and them just, and let's say you're not wearing greaves, shin armor, and they just co for the shins, man. I mean, it would be awful if you're on the opposing side, but I like the shape of this piece of wood. It aids well to like a salvaged, tribal, look that I feel like a lot of goblins would have, or how a lot of people might portray goblins. And then we'll have the last little one. And this one's cute because so this one's brown and it looks really good with the black iron nails as a contrast and the leather wrap there as a contrast. I think it looks really neat. And this is a fun little one, definitely like goblin sized or halfling sized. But the thing that tickled me about this one is when I was shaping it, the wood was very interesting. So if you look here at the quote unquote pommel, got like a little wooden spike there, and then like the little, the wider part there that sticks out makes a pretty good hand stop. So you actually have like a the goblin equivalent of like a skull crusher spike or whatever you want to call it. So this one is a little fun one, and I was really tickled with how it came out. So that's been some decorative clubs that I've made. And I know they're not the best in the world, but hey, for a blind dude, I'm pretty happy with my work. And I think the next video is going to be functional clubs that aren't spiked. So look forward to seeing you there. Stay safe.